House. What's that? Okay, well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the October 9th, 2025 meeting of the New York City Campaign Finance Board. The first item on our agenda is the approval of the minutes from our August 28th meeting. I move their approval. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstentions, motion carries. Next item on the agenda are my remarks. So I'll begin by stating the obvious, which is that the November general election is less than a month away. In today's meeting, the board will be voting on its 12th round of public funds payments for this election cycle on enforcement matters relating to two candidate committees and a payment determination regarding a candidate committee in a prior election cycle. I'll now turn to our executive director for his report.
Thank you, Chair Schaefer. Good morning, everyone. We're in the home stretch of the 2025 elections. As Chair Schaefer mentioned moments ago, today the board will make its 12th round of public funds payments determinations, with the 13th and final public funds payments scheduled for the board's next meeting on October 30th. Last Friday, a disclosure statement was due for all general election candidates. Many thanks to the candidates who filed early or on time. The last pre-election disclosure filing will be due on October 24th. We also have daily pre-election disclosure of financial activity due from candidates and independent spenders beginning on October 21st. CFB staff worked through the weekend analyzing thousands of transactions reported to our agency through last week's disclosure filings to determine eligibility for public funds payments today. This is also prime time for CFB staff doing voter education work through in-person events and through advertising campaigns. Our staff will be holding dozens of events, both on our own and in partnership with nonpartisan community-based organizations in all 5 boroughs between now and Election Day. The print voter guide for the general election is starting to reach mailboxes across the city. The guide has complete information about the candidates for every office and about 6 important ballot proposals to change the state constitution and the city charter. Our online voter guide will also be published in the coming days at nycvotes.org. It will incorporate video statements from candidates, as well as summaries of statements for and against the ballot proposals submitted by members of the public. Both the print and online guides are available in English and in 13 other languages, so be on the lookout for the voter guide. This week, we announced the final schedule of the official CFB general election debates. There will be 2 Campaign Finance Board debates in the race for mayor. The first on Thursday, October 16th, sponsored by WNBC, and the second on Wednesday, October 22nd, sponsored by New York One. 3 candidates qualified for each debate: Andrew Cuomo, Zoran Mamdani, and Curtis Sliwa. Because 2 or more candidates did not meet the eligibility threshold, there will not be CFB-sponsored debates for the offices of Controller and Public Advocate. This is all hands-on-deck time for the CFB. The frontline work of engaging voters and supporting candidates done by our campaign affairs, campaign finance administration, and public affairs staff is made possible by staff all across the agency: tech staff, legal staff, operations and finance staff, people and engagement staff, strategy and policy staff, everyone. So I want to thank all CFB staff for your tireless efforts. Hang in there, keep going. We'll all sleep in December. Back to you, Chair Schaefer.
Thank you. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is the vote on the 2025 public funds payment determinations. So I will now introduce a motion to approve public funds payments for the regular 2025 city elections to the following candidates and in the following amounts. The board will then vote on the payment amounts specified in the memo that is available after this meeting. For mayor, Andrew Cuomo, $2,329,463. Zoran Mamdani, $1,029,721. Curtis Sliwa, $1,158,547. For public advocate, Jomani Williams, $22,105. For controller, Mark Levine, $113,059. For Manhattan Borough President Brad Hoylman Siegel, $30,573. For Staten Island Borough President Michael Colombo, $21,067. And Vito Fasella, $28,614. For Bronx Borough President Vanessa Gibson, $9,291. For City Council District 1, Helen Q, $68,081. For City Council District 2, Harvey Epstein, $2,280. And Ali Ryan, $1,596. For City Council District 3, Dominic Romeo, $61,659. For City Council District 4, Kyle Atadi, $17,898. For City Council District 5, Alina Bonsell, $72,922. For City Council District 7, Adafe Akporo, $12,616. City Council District 8, Federico Colon, $7,220. For City Council District 11, Eric Dinowitz, $9,211. For City Council District 13, Shirley Aldebol, $50,236. Christy Marmorato, $67,953. For City Council District 15, Oswald Felice, $19,266. For City Council District 17, Justin Sanchez, $6,080. For City Council District 19, Benjamin Chu, $123,584. For City Council District 20, Stephen Wang, $5,966. For City Council District 23, Linda Lee, $14,630. For City Council District 25, Shaker Krishnan, $10,402. For City Council District 30, Alicia Vachunas, $8,930. For City Council District 38, Alexa Aviles, $760. Luis Cuero, $12,616. For City Council District 41, Yehuda Schaefer, $17,526. For City Council District 44, Simcha Felder, $48,046. For City Council District 45, Hatem El Gamasi, $40,485. For City Council District 46, Mercedes Narcisse, $69,981. City Council District 47, Kyla Santosroso, $113,995. And George Sarantopoulos, $148,489. For City Council District 49, Sarah Bloss, $39,063. Camila Hanks, $62,282. And John Shea, $40,812. For City Council District 50, David Carr, $4,180. And Radhakrishna Mohan, $18,772. For City Council District 51, John Buthorn, $9,880. Clifford Hagan, $5,396. Frank Milano, $10,802. This motion also includes the board's decision to deny public funds payments to other participating candidates who are ineligible at this time. Immediately following this meeting, the board will make public a list of those candidates and the reasons for their ineligibility, as well as any candidates who have declined public funds payments at this time. Candidates who have been denied payment today have a right to appeal that decision. In addition, there will be more opportunities, or I guess one more opportunity for campaigns to establish eligibility for matching funds in the coming weeks. I will be recusing myself from the vote regarding Andrew Cuomo, but I will be participating in the vote regarding all other candidates. Additionally, board member Richard Davis is recusing himself from the vote regarding Mayor Eric Adams, but is participating in the vote regarding all other candidates. So I will now make that motion officially. I'll call for a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? The motion carries. The next item on our agenda is a vote for expenditure relief in Council District 5. I'll ask our General Counsel, Joe Gallagher, to explain this issue for us.
Thank you and good morning, Chair Schaefer, Executive Director Ryan, and members of the Campaign Finance Board. I'm Joseph Gallagher, General Counsel at the CFB. CFB staff has determined that a non-participant in the 2025 general election in City Council District 5 has raised or spent more than 3 times the expenditure limit for the 2025 general election, exceeding the 300% threshold required to lift the general election expenditure limit for all participants. Therefore, CFB staff recommends that the board completely lift the applicable expenditure limit for all participants in the general election for City Council District 5.
Thank you. So I'll move that we lift the expenditure limit in Council District 5 for those other candidates. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstention? The motion carries. Thank you, Joe. We have two, depending on how you count them, 3, 2 penalty determinations and 1 payment determination. I believe one of the candidates involved in the penalty determination is appearing today. So I'll ask that Justin Krebs or his representatives to take a seat over here on my right, and CFB staff to take a seat over on the left. Good morning and welcome. So let me just explain how we operate. I'm going to ask the CFB staff to just tee up the issue for us. It's not really an argument, but just an explanation of why we're here. The floor will then be yours to say whatever you have to say. There may be some back and forth. There may be some questions from the board. When we're finished, the board will not adjourn, but deliberate in the next room, and we'll come back and announce our decision. Okay?
Yep.
All right.
Good morning, Chair Schaefer, members of the board, Executive Director Ryan, and Mr. Krebs. I'm Jennifer Ferens, an attorney for the CFB, and with me is Margot Lindsay, an auditor with the CFB. Before the board is the matter of a Krebs campaign in the 2021 primary election for City Council District 39. Justin Krebs is a participant in the program and received public funds. CFB staff recommends that the board find that the campaign committed the following violation: failing to respond to the initial documentation request and the draft audit report. CFB staff also recommends that the board find that the campaign must repay the campaign's final bank balance, a check for which the candidate has already provided. The campaign contests the recommended violation, but does not contest the repayment obligation.
Thank you.
Great.
Mr. Krebs, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair Schaefer, Executive Director Ryan, members of the board, as well as the staff, the liaisons, the auditors, the attorneys, Jennifer and Marvo, who I've been in touch with, for taking time today and for your effort to make the system work for candidates, for voters, and for our city's democracy. I joined you a few months ago to discuss my 2021 race. Most of you were familiar. I think member Moskowitz, I don't think I got to meet you in May. I was wearing the same suit, but a different shirt. I only own one suit, but now that way the archivists who study the YouTube footage will be able to tell it apart. And we discussed in 2021 the other alleged violations in my enforcement letter. At my last appearance, you did give the opportunity for me to provide more documentation, and I thank you for that. And I thank the team that reviewed it, because as a result, we resolved the substantial alleged violation for excess expenditures. Now, the only alleged violation that remains is one, and I can take up less of your time than in May. This is the matter of the penalty for late responses, which as I understand it, the penalty can be set at the discretion of the board. In my response to the enforcement letter and in the previous hearing, I offered explanations about the audit requests. but these were explanations. These are not justifications. I, as the treasurer and candidate of my campaign, it was my responsibility to provide documents to show how I was the steward of public funds. There were changes in the CFP staff around the time, changes in how the CFP communicated with my team, changes in the composition of my own crew of volunteers and friends, changes in my own professional personal life that all contributed to the delay. And I can share more as I have in the letters, but I accept it as ultimately my responsibility to provide the documents requested. A consequence, some level, is appropriate. For my first contact with Jennifer Friends in August 2024, I sought to be timely and transparent. I worked to provide all the documentation that was requested, to answer questions, to seek clarifications, stay in frequent, almost constant communication with the office. In the end, all the documentation that was requested was provided, late but fully. Thankfully, through this process, we were able to resolve all the other alleged violations. Also during this time, there was a significant discovery with financial implications, which I described in greater length in the enforcement letter, or in my response to the enforcement letter. My campaign account with TD Bank was a victim of fraud and theft. I can go into more details. The short of it, several $1,000s were taken from the account, funds that absolutely should be returned to the public coffers. So while I continue to dispute this with TD Bank, it's not yet resolved. I provided a personal check as a result in October 2024 to cover those costs. I understand the check was not deposited. I'm ready to issue it again when and as needed. But I raise this because it does mean that I will already be more than $3,000 out of pocket to properly close these matters. A significant financial consequence before other penalties are assessed. So should I recover these funds from TD, I will eagerly update Jennifer and the CFB. With this context, and for these reasons, I ask the board to use your discretion to assess a lower penalty. One option is to count my personal reimbursement against the fines. Another is to consider responses to the CFB audit requests late instead of a total failure to respond, and reduce the penalties in accordance with the 2021 penalty guidelines, since in the end I did provide all the documentation requested, albeit tardily. Thank you for your time and consideration, and happy to answer any questions.
I may have said this the last time. You find your reference this as being late as erroneous, because it was a total failure to respond, not once, but twice. First to the document request, second to the draft audit report. And like a few others, when you were finally caught and determined that you might owe some money, you chose to then provide documentation. To me, that is not late. That is not fulfilling your responsibility. My question, though, is you were the treasurer and the candidate. What was your thinking in not having a treasurer? Because in most campaigns, by having a treasurer, it provides an additional way to ensure compliance.
Yeah, a check and balance. I agree. You did raise this last time, so no one's having deja vu. Member Moskowitz, you get to hear it. The only exception I'll take is that the language that I was caught and therefore I brought in, I wasn't trying to elude. So I don't think I was caught and then brought in. I do agree that it escalated, but that's my only exception to that. I was a first-time candidate. It's the only time I've run for public office. In November 2019, when I was thinking about it and realized, you know what, I want to do this, and actually started seeing that other candidates in the 39th district, which was a very crowded race with very professional candidates, were starting up. I updated, I thought, oh, I wasn't going to start until spring. I was going to get things together. You know what? I'm going to do this now, and I want to get involved now. In retrospect, I'm glad I did, because it meant I raised most of my money by January 2020 before the pandemic shut down and allowed me to focus on other things. I say that because it means that when I came in and met with Jacqueline Williams, who was the liaison at the time, and sought to expedite my ability to become a candidate, I had this question of who could be treasurer. I hadn't quite assembled my kitchen cabinet yet. Two of the folks who were closest to me for various I don't know if it's like legal reasons or governance reasons, would not have been allowed to be listed as a candidate, though they agreed to help me. It's not a position I wanted to put my wife in. I know that some people do spouses, you want it to be someone you trust. So I signed myself up to be the candidate with the idea that other people, as happened, would help me with all the filings, which were all timely, which were accurate, would help me with all of the compliance. That is why, were I to run for office ever again, I would probably make a different decision. Does that answer your question, Member Davis?
It is. you talk about at the beginning, you were sort of in a rush, but you never changed that. People do change their treasurer during the course of a campaign. And but I gather.
Yeah, and I think I hadn't, because it was working well, you know, I had two other, one person who was eventually my staff member, a campaign director, and somebody else who was helping me with the filings, attended the trainings. They were also receiving communication from the CFB through the time. So it didn't seem like it needed to happen. And retrospect is a whole lot clearer than fortune telling, prospect. Thank you.
I might add that in not making your wife treasurer, you probably made the right decision.
We have a largely happy marriage, and it wouldn't have, and that was, I asked people who should be a treasurer, and they said, make it someone you trust, someone who's not going to run away with money, but also somebody who can follow these rules. We have 3 children. This was 5 years ago. So they were at the time, let's see, in 2019, when I started, they would have been 7, 5, and 5. It would not have been fair for anyone else in my household to have been on paperwork.
Any response from you guys? Okay, well, I think we've got.
Can you just refresh why didn't, I know you went over this when you were here earlier, but why didn't you respond to the notices from I understand you take responsibility for it, but what is the series of events? There were multiple attempts to reach you, to inform you of the obligation to file the IDR. Why did you not respond until it, as you characterized it, escalated?
Yeah. I wish I had a iron proof. That's not the phrase, but a cast iron answer for you. But I never saw the IDR email. That's why I never opened the IDR. Again, I'm not saying that that's how it should have been, but I think it's in the documentation that I literally never opened the IDR. So I actually didn't really know what the stakes were at that time. I'm not saying that I shouldn't have been able to respond. And it comes over email. I'm sure it was emailed to my Gmail as well as my campaign account. It is up to me to make sure the accounts are up to date. There had been 2 other people from my staff, not my staff, sorry, a total friend volunteer who was doing the following, and a staff member who was no longer a staff member who had been receiving previous communications from the CFB. They were no longer receiving communications. So there weren't the checks and balances that Member Davis was referring to that would have happened. And that's how that got by. There were a lot of other things going on in life that we can get to as well. That's true for everybody. That's true for every candidate. That's true for every treasurer. And so I think that it took me a while to kind of recognize the stakes, recognize how much material there was to get together and to figure out who in the team could get it together. And by the time I ended up seeing that means after the DAR, after the second one, which would have been then a year later, I think, or a year and a half later.
And then I know that you must have attended the initial training as the candidate and the treasurer.
Absolutely.
I think the requirement was that it was one, but you were both some of the CF training. And so did you not get the information about the IDR and how that was a part of the process of a candidate receiving public funds?
No, I did know that there would be a follow-up audit. Absolutely.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you very much.
I think we'll go into deliberations now and we're back in a little while. Thanks. So we have deliberated, and I'm going to propose the motion to incorporate the following conclusions. First, for candidate Rubaya Rahman, who is a 2023 candidate for city council, and who didn't appear today, we find the following violation. Accepting contributions from corporations, limited liability companies, or partnerships, and recommended penalty of $1,309, as well as a recommended public funds repayment of $2,220. I'm going to skip Mr. Krebs just for a second because his is a little more complicated. I'm going to skip forward to Fernando Mateo. This really isn't a penalty matter at all, but rather a determination that the board pay an additional $6,000 to Mr. Mateo. This is in connection with his run for the city council, and this was in the primary election back in 2021. Now, with respect to Mr. Krebs, the board finds a failure to respond to the IDR and the DAR. I'm going to start with the recommended public funds repayment. So that amount, all agree, is $5,390.03. I believe the check that Mr. Krebs sent in was now stale, and we'll just tear that up and you can issue a new check in that amount. With respect to the penalty, the board proposes to impose a penalty of $10,000, but with the proviso that Mr. Krebs is obligated to pay $5,788 promptly now, and on the condition that he, in good faith, pursue the fraud claim with TD Bank, and when that has been resolved, to the extent that it is resolved favorably, that additional amount of $4,212 will then be paid to the CFB. If it is not resolved favorably, or if it's resolved in some lesser amount, then that's the amount that Mr. Krebs is obligated to repay, and any difference between that number in total and $10,000 will be waived. So it's a $5,788 now, plus what he gets from TD Bank, up to $4,212. Is that clear?
Just to be clear, it is an absolute condition of this that the new check be issued promptly.
Yes, and we also request a status report in the next, say, 60 days as to what's happening. Okay, that's the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Thank you. And that's it in terms of our business for today. So the final item is we do have some things to discuss in executive session, but none that require any action. So I'll make a motion that we go into executive session and adjourn directly from executive session. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. We're done for today. Thank you very much.